Is 8 a.m. on Tuesday here in Chicagoland. Welcome, everybody, to the Listening with Your Eyes LinkedIn Live. I thank you so much for joining me. And if you're watching the replay, feel free to always contact me. Let me know you're out there by putting a question or a hello in the comments. If you missed it live and you have questions after today, feel free to send me an email or connect with me through LinkedIn. If you and I aren't connected on LinkedIn and you're seeing this on the YouTube channel or maybe you're on Facebook, definitely connect and let me know that you saw the live broadcast and want to learn more or just want to be connected out there in the universe. I am Allison Henderson, your host and the CEO of Moving Image Consulting. Today, we are going to be talking about body language bias. And I'm not sure I've necessarily focused an entire live on this, but it is something that has been tinkering around in my brain as of late. I've started reading books on bias, and there's so much out there on cognitive biases that we have. And of course, that's a big human resource topic right now and has been for a while, but I am really curious about physical, our behavioral biases, because we have those too, and it's nothing to be uh, ashamed of or to get down on yourself about, because we all have them, and it's based on our preferences. In general, we know that we tend to more readily like the people that have similar movement patterns to ourselves. And we tend to take a little bit longer to warm up to people who are very different from us. And this goes right along with some of the cultural biases that we may have, because many different cultures behave differently, or they move differently because of cultural things. And that, when it's bizarre to us in our brains, or wow, they move really fast or they move really slow or they have a different rhythm oftentimes to kind of how we move here in the States. And those things can instantly create a barrier between us. And it's important to recognize those and to understand what your own biases are so that you can overcome them if necessary. And that's why I've decided on November 10th, I'm going to go ahead and plug it here. I'll plug it at the end as well. I am going to be doing a Q&A and explanation, further, deeper explanation than today on body language bias. And we're going to get into it. We're going to answer all of your questions about that. It's November 10th at noon Central Time. So that would be 1 Eastern or 10 a.m. Pacific, and, every other time zone in between. But I think this is a really important topic because, as I mentioned, we're talking a lot about cognitive biases, and they're just as subconscious and they're just as sneaky, if you will. But I think the body language bias is something that is even more difficult for other people to recognize as coming out in you, because it is so personal and subconscious to your movement patterns. So this is a lot of work that you have to actually do individually. And this is going to be the first part of the True to You training. Remember that True to You training that is starting in January. And that will be 10 individuals who will be joining this small group program. There's a lot of individual pieces to it as well. And you can use your communication uh, strides that we make over time to apply it to any area of your business that you want, whether it be business development or whether it be team communication, whether it be your videos and your more public speaking presentations. We're going to be doing all of that in this True to You program, figuring out really what is your movement signature, what is true to you, and what should you be celebrating versus hiding. We don't want to be emulating others. and thinking that we have to be like someone else in order to make more sales or be a better speaker or get more followers on social media. Authenticity is the name of the game today, everyone. And that's what we're going to be getting to in the True to You program. If you're interested in that thing, you need to go to my website at www.movingimageconsulting.com. Go to the programs page, and there's a little blurb about True to You, and then it says to learn more. So you click on that, and it talks all about that program, what's included. It even has the price right in there, and it's application only. So if you're interested in that, you do need to apply, and we have a conversation to make sure that it's the right fit for you in 2022. Can you believe it? We're almost in 2022. It's November. It's cold out. It's only 30 degrees here. Feels like 30 temperature wise outside. The sun is shining, but it is chilly. So all the sweaters and scarves come out. And it's that lovely fall time when we feel like we should be roasting marshmallows outside at the bonfire. So body language bias, what is it? It is literally your preferences to how somebody else moves. And of course, our biases, when we talk about bias, we generally talk about it as a negative thing. The things that turn us off about other people's movement, about other people's behavior. And so I want you to think about a time maybe when you met a prospective client or you were introduced to someone. There was a new hire in the office and they were introduced at the morning meeting or something, and you kind of instantly had this negative reaction that, oh, I'm not going to like this person, or there's something about this person I don't like. Those are those biases talking. And often it is a body language bias. It is literally they're moving or they're behaving in a way that is less receptive to you and your brain and your decision-making process. So remember that movement pattern analysis is all about your decision-making process and how that exhibits itself on the body. A lot of the body language work that I have to do is very cognitive. It's very neuroscience, which is why this fits right into that cognitive bias thing. And we'll be talking more about it because as I go through these bias books that I'm reading right now, it's fascinating, but I need to get a little bit clearer on it myself before I share it with all of you. But the basics, how it works, is there is something in their behavior that is literally turning you off. And why is that? Well, our brains file every experience away. And when you see something, your brain, in order to make sense of it faster, it looks for commonalities to things that you've experienced before. So it goes into that filing cabinet in your brain and it pulls out a file of somebody else from your past that moves similar to this particular person that you're seeing now. And if it happens to be a negative memory, or it reminds you of somebody that you did not enjoy in your past, maybe it was your 5th grade science teacher that you could never see eye to eye with, and now this person reminds you of that person, you're instantly going to put up a barrier or have kind of a negative reaction to them. It's just the way our brain works because our brain is protective. Remember last week when we had that fantastic conversation with Dr. J, our happiness doctor, and in his book, Pursuit of Happiness, remember it talks about, or the happy brain, what is it? Science of a Happy Brain. Sorry, he talks about the pursuit of happiness, but the book is Science of a Happy Brain. Your brain is out for survival. It is not out to make you happy. It's not out to make you nicer. It's not out to do any of those things. It is very protective of you because a long, long time ago, right, our brains had to protect us from the wild and from the elements and from, cougars and things out in the wild. So our brain is trying to protect us from this potential threat that we're seeing in front of us. Now, granted, you are probably not, you're not necessarily running the opposite way. You are not doing anything specifically to harm this person that you see. You just know that you have a negative reaction to them. So when that happens, I want you to take a moment to study what you're seeing in that person. Take a moment to turn on your eyeballs and observe what is happening. And those would be things like faster movements or slower movements. Is there a certain direction that their gestures go in? Is there a way? Is there a posture? We have a lot of reaction to postures because postures are fixed positions of the body that people tend to stand in. And we get really used to certain people in our lives standing in certain ways. And again, if you had a negative reaction to somebody, if their posture is similar, it can be a big trigger. So you need to write down what it is that you're seeing. And then later after the meeting, not too far after it, but take a look at what you noticed about that person and see if it triggers anything. Like, who does this remind me of? Really think to yourself, why did I have a negative reaction to this person? Who does this remind me of? And you may be surprised at what comes up because it could be something, wow, I haven't thought about that person in ages. Wow, I can't believe I'm still being affected by that bad experience. Well, of course, all of those experiences we retain, and many experiences we actually physically retain, like in our bodies, our muscle memory. So, if the muscle memory is that strong, you are also having that negative reaction in your own physicality, which is fascinating. So, let me give you an example of my own bias. All right, I'm going to come clean. One of my biases is people that move uh, a lot slower than I do. I tend to be a quick mover. I tend to do what we call in movement pattern analysis terms, decision loading. I like to have a lot of different balls in the air. I like to have different projects happening all at the same time. And there are other people that just, that's not their decision making habit. They like to complete one thing and then move on to the next thing and move on to the next thing. And that methodical nature is difficult for me. And I was directing a show. Many of you know, or maybe many of you don't know. I'm also a theater director with my master's in directing and dramaturgy. And I was directing a show one time, and my stage manager, so my right hand man, the person that makes sure that the actors are where they need to be and calls all of the light cues and sound cues and everything in the show. So the kind of not the what's the word I'm looking for? Oh my gosh, I'm totally drawing a blank. Not the artistic side, but the very practical side of theater. My stage manager happened to be one of those kind of methodical people. Not that my stage manager didn't get things done, certainly did. But it was just, I would be kind of flitting all over the place and taking care of things as I saw them, or just my energy and my aura and behavior and everything was very different. But I had to take a step back and know that not to have a negative reaction when next to me things were just in my mind plodding along. And I really had to check my bias at the door because there was no reason for me to be disproved, for having any kind of disapproval, for any kind of negative reaction, because everything was being completed. Everything got done. It just wasn't the way I would do it. And part of that then was, you feel it because their movement is different, their energy is different. So the whole time, and they sit right at the table with you when you're doing tech and things, you're right there with your stage manager. And so, it's like this constant thing. And I really had to get over that in my own mind. I had to come to acceptance of this other person. And at the time, I didn't know everything that I know about movement pattern analysis. At the time, I didn't. I just knew I had to get over it. I didn't necessarily know why. It was more like, why do I constantly have this urge to either correct or do things for this other person? Like, why is that upsetting me? And then when I took a step back, I was like, oh, this person just does things differently than I do. And I think I was probably in training at the time, so I could make the connection, but it was something that I had to learn. And now that I'm a solo person, yeah, it doesn't, right? It doesn't affect me as much. The partnerships that I have, you're more, uh, I guess, specific in those. And some, you oftentimes we choose people particularly because they happen to be similar to us in style. So if is this making sense? I feel like I'm rambling a little bit today because I'm still formulating a lot of this in my own mind. But the key is to recognize when it happens, write down the behavior that you see, and figure out if there's a connection somewhere. And then, of course, separate yourself from that other experience. It may create a new one. Maybe purposely reach out and have lunch or coffee or drinks or something with this other person in order to get to know them and to create your own experience with that person that is separate from that file that your brain picked out from fifth grade, right? You need to figure out a way to overcome that or surpass it and those sorts of things. So I will say that these biases are something to be looked at, which is why I'm so excited about the True to You program in January and this Q&A that we're having coming up in November, because I don't know that it's talked about. I still haven't done my Google search for body language bias and what the research is that's out there, because I'm not sure if there is any, honestly. So I might be forging new territory here, but it makes sense to me. I've seen it in other people. I've seen it happen in my own life, as I explain. So I know that these body language biases do exist. Let me see. What time is it? Yeah, we're just about, or a little over our 15 minutes. So I just want to go ahead and put the link in the chat. This bit.ly link is the link to register for the Q&A. And I will try to remember to post it at the bottom of the LinkedIn Live when it sits on my feed and go into YouTube and all of that stuff. Or always just reach out to me and say, hey, what was that link to register for the Q&A? Because this is really interesting and I'm curious about this. And that's what we need to be doing these days, right? We need to stay curious about things. So I am definitely curious about body language bias, and I'm very much interested in your thoughts on this and whether you're seeing this live and happening in your offices. Even virtually, we could still have body language biases. I think virtually sometimes we have even more because we are seeing less through the screen. And so our brain has less to go on. And when we have less to go on, then the file drawer, right? The experiences that they bring out are more generic because and maybe it's just going off of a meeting that you had virtually that wasn't going so well or something. And this person reminds you of the person that was leading that meeting. When you have less body language to go on, your brain can't be as specific. Your brain has less to go on in its own decision-making process of whether you like or don't like somebody. So virtually, I would encourage you to give everyone a little bit more rope here before you make those decisions. Take a moment to give more grace to others, particularly if they haven't been watching all of my virtual tips and tricks on how to come across through the screen and how to observe body language through the screen, because they might be at a little bit of a disadvantage to you who have been following along with these things. So have a great week, everybody. I've reached out to some people. I don't know whether we'll have a guest next week or not, or whether maybe we'll continue with this bias conversation. I'm not sure. But I definitely hope to see you on November 10th at that Q&A / bias discussion / training, whatever it ends up being. It's a community event. It's something free for us to get things aired and to talk about it. And then, of course, that True to You program starting in January. There's only 10 people who will be in that program. So if this is of interest at all, I encourage you to apply. So again, that's through my website, www.movingimageconsulting.com. Go to programs, learn more, and the application is in there. Okay, I guess that's all for now. I thank you so much for joining me or for watching the replay. I know there's more of you that watch the replay than watch live because I get comments after the fact, or I have people reaching out to me and I had no idea that you were watching. So have a great week, and we will see you next time for Listen with Your Eyes LinkedIn Live.